So as I prepare for the relaunch of Max Cámara in 2023, I'm rereading the existing 6 Max Cámara novels. And yesterday I finished reading the third of them, which is The Anarchist Detective. Now, The Anarchist Detective is the first book in the series that takes us away from Valencia a little bit. There's some action in Valencia, but most of the time we're in Max's hometown of Albacete. Now, most of the time when Spaniards talk about Albacete, if they're not from Albacete themselves, they do so in a slightly comical tone of voice. Certain phrases such as Albacete, caga y vete are very common as soon as you mention the name of the town. I'm not going to translate that for you here. Look it up if you're interested. It's rude and it's funny. But what's going on in Albacete is it's in La Mancha. It's where Don Quixote comes from, not the city of Albacete, but that area. You know, it's a big, flat, dry, arid plain, and in the middle of it there is this sort of small city, pretty nondescript in many ways. It's kind of known only as a place where a lot of knives are made in Albacete. It's a sort of the knife-making capital of Spain, and that's about it. It's the sort of city that, you know, if you've got any wherewithal about you and you're born there and you're brought up there, the first thing you want to do as soon as you can is get out and move somewhere else. And a lot of people say move down to Valencia, or they go up to Madrid, or they just basically, it's a town you want to get out of. So Max in book 3 is back in his hometown. He's back in this town that he was trying to flee for so long, not just because it's Albacete and there's not much going on there, but also because of various traumatic events that happened in his past. And this is really a book about ghosts, about the ghosts from the past and laying those ghosts to rest as much as is possible. So Max, we really delved deep, and I'd forgotten how much. We delved really deep into Max and Max's psyche, I suppose, in this book. I think we get a really good handle on him, various things that he is carrying around with him because of events that happened to him and his family in Albacete when he was a kid, which then led to this very strong relationship that he has with his grandfather, Hilario. And Hilario plays an enormous role in this novel, and he has ghosts of his own, some really quite serious ghosts which stretch back to the Spanish Civil War. And so we are delving into his past as much as we are into Max's, and we're learning a lot more about Hilario, and that relationship between the two men really becomes quite cemented in this book. And it's funny. I just forgot how funny this series is. Hilario, I mean, that's why I gave Hilario that name. He's hilarious. You know, I think so. And you know, he's a funny, grumpy kind of anarchist old guy. And the title, The Anarchist Detective, has a sort of a double meaning, because on the one hand, it's about Max kind of, as a detective, kind of really coming to terms with his own sort of inner anarchist as well. So he truly becomes an anarchist detective. But it's also about Hilario, because Hilario, as an anarchist, there's a little bit of detective work going on by Hilario. So that both of them are the anarchist detective in a way. So that was great. It was really fun sort of rediscovering all of that. And actually that really is, I realize that is the main theme of the book. There is this sort of overarching thing about the saffron mafia. I remember a friend of mine, Toby Follett, who's a filmmaker and journalist and what have you. So I remember he tipped me off onto this. He called me up out of the blue one day and said, yeah, we were chatting away, and he told me about the mafia, the saffron mafia in Spain, and how sort of, you know, 95% of the world's saffron is sold as Spanish saffron, but Spain itself only produces, I can't remember the figure, something like 10% of the world's saffron. So there's that, but also how much saffron that we buy is actually fake. And, you know, even sort of scientific tests have been done on saffron, and even the like really top quality saffron that you're buying from a very respectable store in New York or in London or whatever, you know, only maybe 10% of what you're buying is actually saffron. And it's funny, as a result, I did some research. You know, it was great to hear from Toby, and then I did some research of my own, and that became part of the novel. And since then, I have barely bought any saffron, because when you look into it, it's like, wow, there's virtually no real saffron out there in the world. And you start looking for other such as, for example, I often use turmeric when I'm making paella, which sounds a bit odd, and what I've discovered is that lots of people in Valencia are now using turmeric as a sort of colouring agent, because it's much, much healthier than using tartrazine, which is what most people have been using for a long time for making the paella and making them sort of that orangey yellow colour. Anyway, going off piste a bit here, but it's the saffron mafia is sort of part of the story, and it is sort of ostensibly about the sort of the framework. But what's really going on in this novel is it's about ghosts, traumas from the past, and how we deal with those, and how maybe we don't deal with those. So that was really, really interesting, because I had to delve deep into myself to find some of the inspiration for that, traumas in my own life, and they are reflected novelistically, and they bear no relation to the traumas that you see in this novel, but there's an inspiration there coming from experiences that I had as a kid. So that was sort of interesting to see how I'd used that so many years ago, how I'd sort of dug deep into myself. And it's interesting because there's a lot of digging in the novel as well. There's an archaeological, sort of anthropological dig about digging up bodies from the Spanish Civil War, one of whom is Maximiliano Cámara, who is Max's great-grandfather. He's Hilario's father, and it's who he's named after. So there's a sort of, yeah, as you can see where I'm going with this, it's about digging into the past, it's about ghosts, it's about how you cope with those, or how you don't cope with those, because that's also an element of what's going on, strong element of what's going on in the novel. So all in all, really good read. I can't begin to explain how joyful this is being, and this experience of rereading these novels. As I think I said in a previous video, I was very, very trepidatious about this. I really had, I was sort of fighting an instinct in myself not to reread these novels. And now that I'm really enjoying it, and I'm also beginning to understand and realize quite clearly why I was so trepidatious, why I was so reluctant to read these novels. And that's something that I'll be talking about in future videos, because that's an interesting story in itself, about why I was so nervous to read these novels, and why I'd sort of buried my memories of them, and why it feels like I'm reading them for the very first time, as though I had never written them often. I mean, I'm reading these novels and I don't know who the killer is in many instances, or it's slowly coming back to me as I read the novel, and I'm being surprised by them. Usually, almost 99% of the time, I'm being surprised by them in really, really pleasant ways. So that's great. It's a really great experience for me. Anyway, I'm doing this, as I've said in previous videos, I'm doing this because it's part of a crowdfunder to raise the necessary funds to bring back Max in 2023. So please find the links wherever they are, and please try to help, and together we can bring back Max in 2023. Thank you very, very much.